Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Ifeni. Great Malabite.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai.
Bless you, sir.
Yes, we'll start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. The lead story, Tinubu meets senators, members-elect, charges them to work together. Choose own leaders, urges them to put nation's interest above other considerations. PDP moves to back Yari's faction to create upset, says opposition parties will maximize their numbers. Abiodun, governors across parties have accepted APC's candidates. Yes, the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, met yesterday with the members-elect of the National Assemblies, senators-elect and House of Rep members-elect, and touching base with the group. Of course, reading all the papers as they report the stories, clearly it was a move to push forward the choice of the APC and, of course, the choice of the president himself. Godswill Akpabio for Senate President, Tajuddin Abbas for Speaker of the House of Representatives. But there seem to be hurdles on the way because the PDP is also staking his claim, wants to cause an upset, and there is the former governor of Zamfara State, Senator-elect Yari, who has been pushing his own case, canvassing for his place, adverts here and there, and of course, he has the war chest to back it, so it has been reported. But at the end of the day, on the 13th of June, the members of the House of Representatives, the senators, will elect their leaders. But let's see how other newspapers are reporting this story. The Guardian newspaper, in search of independent 10th National Assembly for tough times. Yes, below the photograph there, PDP LP plot against Tinubu's candidates in National Assembly leadership tussle. It's also been reported that Tinubu meets G5 governors as Peter Mba presses for Kanu's release. Yes, the president meeting with a number of stakeholders. And of course, the G5, can they say go by that name, that title G5? G1 plus XG4, perhaps. Yes, they met with the president yesterday. And I saw the jacket of Nyenson Weekend, the photograph with the president. I hope that it's not a Photoshop, but the buttons were not in place. And of course, that must be his third or fourth visit to the villa. In the days of President Muhammadu Buhari, I cannot even remember how many times Nyenson Wike visited the villa. But these are different times, and political relevance post-governorship is at the heart of it. And the likes of Governor Seyi Makinde, former Senator Dave Umahi have made the case at different times, different fora, that Nyenson Wike worked for the election of this president. Well, the Punch newspaper reporting Tinubu's meeting with lawmakers fails to resolve zoning crisis. President called for zoning, failed to name anointed aspirant sources. Opposition parties claim majority. Plot to use number against APC candidates. Yes, the plot is on. But in the adverts I've seen so far, you see Yari, you see Uzokalu. The last time I checked, I thought Kalu was gunning for the Senate president position. Will he settle for Deputy Senate President? Will Yari settle for Deputy Senate President? Left to be seen. Because when you see the two men in the same advertorial working together, of course, only one can be the Senate President if that camp were to pick that position on Inauguration Day. But we'll see how it pans out. The Daily Trust newspaper support Akpabio, Tajuddin. Tinubu urges lawmakers elect. New Telegraph reporting this story. National Assembly leadership race like no other. On June 12th will spring surprise on House floors. PDP says it's working with other opposition parties. Tinubu meets G5 governors behind closed doors at Presidential Villa. Urges lawmakers to put Nigeria first. But if we just go back to this day newspaper, the story above the masthead is of interest. The This Day newspaper. Sule, Buhari spent $19 billion on fixing refineries in 8 years without result. Doubts Nigeria's petrol consumption data. ROMAFC, NNPCL's 8.48 trillion subsidy claims still unreconciled. Backs remover. Yes, of course. The money spent by NNPC over time in subsidizing fuel, many have said needs to be properly audited so that we know what we are talking about. NNPC doing the importation, NNPC telling us the figures, and we know in time past, NNPC's accounting has been opaque. So perhaps an independent auditor looking at the books through the subsidy regime from when it was under recovery until when NNPC declared it as subsidy, some searchlight need to be beamed into that. Now, the amount spent on fixing the refineries that were never fixed, $19 billion, humongous amount. Yet, those refineries are still not working. What is the amount being spent to establish the Dangote refinery? And you know that this country has been a huge joke. Nobody really wanted to build a refinery from the federal government level because how many years has it taken Dangote to put up the biggest single source refinery? Yet, government spent 8 years, 6 years, 8 years, and we're still talking about the same refineries not working in Nigeria. Sad story, you will say. Now, the Daily Sun newspaper, INEC explained non-transmission of election results with beavers. Obi, Labour Party seek court order to question commission on credibility of ICT devices. Yes, reporting from the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. Yes, of course, the Nation newspaper, Tinubu Palace boost Akpabio's Abbas chances. That's how the Nation newspaper is reporting that meeting between Tinubu and the members of the National Assembly who have been elected for the 10th National Assembly. Now, above the masthead, telcos accuse big banks of reluctance to pay USSD charges. That matter has been ongoing, dragging, with the telcos threatening to pull the plugs. But the last time they threatened, they were prevailed on by the CBN and the National Communications Commission. Can the big banks please settle this matter? Because if the telcos have rendered services, you've used their services, and you collected commission from the customers, please pay up so that we don't hear about this tango anymore. Now, below the masthead, presidential poll okay, where we serve, says articles witnesses. That's how the Nation is reporting from the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. Now, the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, below the photograph, subsidy, Falana lists 22 corruption cases that cost Nigeria trillions of naira. Says Obasanjo paid 873 billion naira for fuel subsidy. Yaradua, 749 billion naira for subsidy. Jonathan, 3.9 trillion. Buhari, 11 trillion. Imagine what these humongous amounts would have done for Nigeria if we were not subsidizing fuel, or if we had just accepted when Goodluck Ebele Jonathan in January 2012 removed subsidy. Perhaps by now, Nigeria would have been a different place altogether. Now, the foreign newspapers quickly. The Guardian newspaper, Prime Minister signs pact with Biden as hope of trade deal vanishes. Closer links with U.S. will boost economic security, claims Sunak. Atlantic Declaration marks revival of ties after chaos of Brexit. Yes, Joe Biden hosting the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak yesterday, and in that joint press conference, they announced a deal for a transatlantic cooperation that moves UK firmly into U.S. administration's economic focus, as it were, and marks a revival in ties after the turbulence of Brexit. But it is not the kind of big bang deal many were thinking will come out of that deal. Of course, this deal will ensure closer links between both countries, and they are designed to bolster economic security in response to threats from Russia and China. Now, the Daily Telegraph also reporting Prime Minister set to overrule laws on. No, that's not the story. That's not the story. Now, we just through to the New York Times. The New York Times reporting Trump being indicted. Former President Donald Trump indicted in the U.S. Will that blight his chances as he bids to come back as president? Maybe not likely, because it's like the greater the turbulence for Trump, the greater his support base rally around him. They believe everything that happens to him must be prosecution. And other candidates, other aspirants in the GOP side of the divide will have to work harder beyond these indictments to deny Trump the Republican ticket to face possibly President Joe Biden in the next presidential election. Ruben, Ayo, and Rufai.
So real quickly, I'll talk about that story of Nasarawa State Governor Sule saying that 19 billion was spent to revive refineries. Yes, a lot might have been spent, but for the fact that we're news journalists, it can't be independently verified. I would like him to fact check himself and tell us what are his sources and where did he get that number from. And
NNPC is there to deny if this is not the figure.
And it's only a fair figure. It's only a fair thing to say that, yes, we'll fact check him. He should also tell us where he got the number
NNPC
from.
is still
NNPC
a going
is also
concern.
there.
NNPC has, if this is not the figure, they'll come out and say so.
NNPC has a right of rebuttal. But it doesn't take away the fact that we've had mismanagement in the last administration. And let's not deceive ourselves. The fact that promises were made by the NNPC before now that the refineries will be working, and they are not working. Now, they've extended the deadline again to probably the end of the year before some of the refinery come on stream.
No, according to the NNPC Group CEO, one of the refineries will work in 2023, 2024, another will come on in 2025, and so on and so forth.
So we'll keep waiting till they come on. Also, the fact that all these years, these refineries have been loss-making, and we kept on paying salaries. were paid for inefficiency and incompetence. And what they will keep on saying in their arguments, in their defense, is the fact that you need to keep the place running, either with even if something is not producing. So the way we have run government business all this while is problematic, and that's why we can't make headway with a refinery. Really, when you look at it deeply, it's not supposed to be a big deal for government being in business. We've had countries where government do business successfully. Recently, I was reading about the Temasek Holdings in Singapore. The holding company for most Singaporean companies, even their state media and the likes, is worth over $403 billion in assets, and is doing very well. It puts in the government pocket $22 billion every year in revenue. But the truth here is we mismanage everything due to Nigerian factor. So I hope this administration will be different. We'll be able to learn from all of this, and we'll be able to ensure that things get a lot better. Secondly, we have also pushed the issue of non-payment of USSD fee, all right, by the banks to the telcos. We all remember how Issa Pantami, the former minister, did intervene to, placate the telco companies and the likes when they said they were going to pull out the services. Now this matter has lingered on. The money has not been paid. The telcos need their money to be able to buffer their system. They need their money to be able to make investments in their system. And the telco is doing quite well. There's a story that is saying that the telco sector contributed 2.508 trillion in GDP in first quarter alone, 2023. And that's how important the telco sector is. But when their monies are being trapped by the bank for the services they offer and nothing is being done, then it becomes precarious. So the banks too should find a way to liaise with the telco companies and pay these monies off once and for all. It's really very important. We need to be able to support each other and do things right in this country. Because if we don't do things right, then everything goes kaput.
All right, just to draw attention to the window story in the Guardian newspaper, World Bank lists Nigeria among countries with high food security concern. And it's not new. This is not the first time we've been listed, but also important to note that certain recent developments also would push up or make it even worse, exacerbate the issue. We are listed alongside countries like Afghanistan, Somalia, countries that have had to endure war, unstable governments. And some of the things that have been highlighted, of course, is this issue of security and the recent fuel subsidy removal and its impact on raising the food inflation rate and, of course, generally to the core inflation rate in terms of the numbers. And then also to bring it to the attention as well, because in the early days, after the fuel subsidy removal and even until this week, the focus had been on what would the government do in terms of palliatives for the most vulnerable in Nigeria. We cannot leave that conversation. We must continue to have it because it trickles down to the livelihood and the ability for Nigerians to be able to feed themselves or feed their family. It is very important that we get to hear what the plans of the government is. As at yet, we've only had general conversations around things, we're going to put in palliatives in place, but we haven't still gotten the detail as to how they hope to do this and ensure that they protect the most vulnerable. Again, the numbers are out. We have talked about this a number of times, that the president has his work cut out for him. Beyond the meetings he's having with all these stakeholders, he must also address the issue of governance. Security, poverty must be addressed decisively.
Okay, still on the statements by the governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule, and the chairman of the RMAFC, Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Commission. Their main point is about the removal of subsidy, and both men agreed that subsidy should go. So they're not saying anything new, anything original. After all, the government itself had already taken a decision in that direction. But the arguments provided by the two gentlemen will seem to provide further justification for the removal of subsidy. In the case of Governor Sule of Nasarawa, he quoted his bona fide. He said over 2 decades ago, he was managing director of African Petroleum. So he knows what he's talking about. And it was in that context that he talked about the failure of the refineries. And there are many people out there who say, how can we have refineries all over the place? And these refineries will just be leaky buckets, just becoming centers of wastage. During the last time the NNPC did audited accounts, it was reported that these refineries were gulping lots of money with nothing to show for it. Second, he talked about consumption. he said another thing contributing to the inefficiency is the lack of reliable data as to consumption. That sometimes we'll be told, oh, we consume 30 million liters per day. Another time, 50 million liters of petrol per day, and now 65 million liters per day. That based on his own experience within that sector, it's not possible that Nigerians will consume 65 million liters of petrol per day. So he's calling for transparency. He's calling for accountability. And the 19 billion naira that he quoted, dollars that he quoted, that has not been verified. But you could get the point that if the same amount is used to build a 650,000 barrels of petrol a day, by the Dangote Refinery as it plans to do, all the refineries in Nigeria at the moment, government owned, can only do 450,000 barrels per day. So why is it that if government in 8 years has spent the same amount, why will it not be able to produce at least one functional refinery? And it's one of the reasons why some people argue that the existing refineries, government-owned refineries, should be sold as scrap. And he went a step further and said there should be a probe of economic saboteurs. Those were his specific points. As for Shehu, he pointed out that, look, since January, NNPC has not been putting money in the Federation account, again because of subsidy. And that we need to free up that. Once we remove subsidy, then of course NNPCL, owned by Ministry of Finance Incorporated, will be able to at least put some money as a commercial, as a going concern into Nigeria's resources. So those are the details in that regard. So we keep getting these justifications, and not many people will argue with the justifications. But how do you implement the policy is where the problem is. From the foreign papers, there was one very disturbing story about a park in Annecy, France, where a man attacked babies in their prams and was knifing them. I don't know what will come over any man, an adult, and you go to a park where mothers are with their babies, the babies are in prams, and you just start knifing them one after the other. Something has gone wrong with this world, though. Something has truly gone wrong. And I salute the courage of the woman who confronted him. Another woman confronted this guy, even with a knife with him.
The other day you were talking about signs of the end times.
Yes.
These are also signs. The wicked will do wickedly. And that's what you're saying.
Well, we sympathize with, the families affected in France and also in England, because a British child was also involved in this. And that the authorities in France will investigate this to find if there are any collaborators in this man's inhumanity to man.
Yes. I don't know what I will still have some time, Ruben.
Okay.
Otherwise, I want to draw the attention to the story on the front page of Business Day. Not the lead story, really. Anger trails Obasa's indigene bias property law comments. Yes, the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Mudashiru Obasa, during his inauguration speech, of course, being elected for the third time as Speaker of the House, Lagos State House of Assembly. And you expect that somebody who has been in that position will use that position to promote unity amongst the people who live in Lagos State, right? Indigenous and non-indigenous alike. But he's saying that the Speaker who revealed that the Assembly plans in his acceptance speech as a third term, yes, that there will be a law, they will pass a new property and business ownership law in the state. And from what he is saying there, that there will be laws, he said, adding that the laws will be in the areas of economy and commerce, property and titles. And we will reverse all that is reversible to protect the interest of the indigents. And in the light of what has transpired before and during the general elections, this looks like adding fuel to fire.
They play.
Yeah.
Playing.
No, but
can't do nothing.
no, but people, we need to draw the attention of people. Why President Bola Ahmed Tinubu use every opportunity to talk about unity is people at home, this one, talking about how they will ensure that they reverse what?
He's bluffing.
The Constitution gives every Nigerian the right to live in any part of the country and do business and own property. So I think this kind of comments, the man needs to be called to order. The other day, Refinery trying to complexify issues for the president. Now, Mudashiru Obasa, somebody who is being elected the third time as a speaker, you think by now is politically mature to know that Nigeria as a country, we must live together as one. That is the aspiration. And here, the kind of comment coming from somebody
is bluffing.
Yes, no, you think he's bluffing, but before you know it, you know this carry-go mentality.
You know, I get the carry-go mentality. I get what you're saying, and it should be condemned. But I think it's bluffing to a large extent. You know why? You need foreign investments to run any economy. You're trying to make a law to push people aside because they're from. How about the houses these politicians go to buy abroad? Who makes indigenous laws to push them aside? So he's bluffing. And please, for further reading, I would like to tell him a story. The story of a certain Idi Amin that tried the same thing in Uganda. All of a sudden woke up one day and sent the people that were in trade and commerce, the Indians and Pakistanis, away. To date, the economy of Uganda has not recovered from that thing. In fact, President Yoweri Museveni in the 70s had to go ahead, in the 1990s, went to England at a point, because most of those Ugandans went to England to go and beg them that some of them should please come back. So that's why I say he's bluffing. He's talking to his base.
But it should be called to order.
But it should be called to order. It's exciting his base. You know, people say things to excite their base. But it should be called to order because Lagos is a cosmopolitan city and things like this are abhorrent and should not be said. That's why I say he's bluffing. The laws, where is the ground norm of this country is the Constitution. This will violate the Constitution. So he's bluffing. So when you take it to the courts, upper courts would nullify anything he has put.
When you rave your base like this, remember what Trump did by telling lies.
When the base discovered that this was all a lie.
And you think the base will discover?
Yes.
Oh, they will discover.
I think you give a number of people sometimes more credit than they ought in terms of how exposed or without an insult to anyone, but intelligent. No, it's true because you think that everyone thinks like you, that you'd know that it's not a proper thing to say. But the truth is that whether he's playing to the gallery or speaking to the emotions of people who came out to vote, in the elections, this was a big issue. And what we're trying to do, and thank you, Mr. Feni, for drawing the fact that the president is trying with his speech to bring people together and talk about one Nigeria, the nation. And there you are, where we're trying to repair the damage that was done during the elections as a Speaker of the House that we're going to make laws. If you read the comments from others who think in that line, how about rebuttals from other states? People say, we're going to do the same to you in our own country. In the fragile state of our unity, we do not need statements like this. We need public office holders who would come out to speak about building one Nigeria, building a nation where people can work and live together in unity. That's what we should be promoting and pursuing more at this time.
The president should call him to order because he's one of the president's godsons. He's a politics.
Except that the president is not supposed to function like a headmaster. But we will have expected that Mudashiru Obasa himself, who is a lawyer, I think they even say he has a PhD.
Really?
Yes, should know this. He should know what the law says specifically. That there's nowhere in the Nigerian laws, whether you're talking about Section 43, Section 44 of the 1999 Constitution, or Section 1 of the Land Use Act, where anybody is given the power to say, a Nigerian living in any part of Nigeria cannot own movable and immovable property, and that the Legislative Assembly will make laws to reverse all that is reversible. I mean, that's provocative, it's insensitive. It's on the same level with a statement made recently and attributed to Nasir Rufai, former governor of Kaduna State. But what we see here, either you are talking about Nasir Rufai or Mudashiru Obasa, is how our elite are so opportunistic. They play politics with anything, ethnicity principally, indigeneity also, and also citizenship. Look, it's a violation of the right to own property. It's also discriminatory, a violation of Section 42 of the 1999 Constitution, which says nobody shall be discriminated against. So this is these are the principles that as a lawyer, you should know, even if it's a general student of knowledge. You don't have to be a lawyer to know that certain things are not proper. And coming on the back of the recent crisis in Lagos State, such statements as Lagos belongs to Yoruba people, with which he prefaced his commentary, or that nobody should go about saying Lagos is a no man's island, a no man's land, and that it belongs to all Nigerians. There's no point making those statements. He had been elected by his colleagues for a third term. He got there 2015, 2019. Now he's Speaker at 2023. In fact, the luck, the grace that he has enjoyed should give him enough sense of humility to realize that he's a leader. He's not just a leader of, where is he from, by the way? Is he from Mushin, one constituency in Mushin?
The constituency represents.
Yeah, the constituency that he represents. So it's a disservice to the people in that constituency, because I'm sure in his constituency, there will be other people who are not Lagosians, who are non-indigenous. Okay, if they are going to make laws to drive people out of Lagos, are they going to drive Egba people from Lagos? Yes. Egba people that have been in Lagos for centuries, okay? Egba people that even have a quarter, Abule Egba. Are they going to drive Shomolu people? Who are the Ijebus there? Yeah. Are they going to drive people from Okokomaiko, who at different points have had representation, representing Lagos State in the Federal House of Representatives? So this is very contradictory, but we just appeal to the new power brokers on the block, to behave like leaders, to put the national interest first, as President Tinubu yesterday was telling the lawmakers when he met with them. And the people in Lagos and elsewhere should also put national interest first, rather than, sectarian, ethnic, or any kind of partisan interest. I don't think that President Tinubu needs to summon him like a headmaster. No, he's old enough, and he has spent enough time in the legislative assembly.
He's not reflecting it now.
Please, can we even ask a question? For all of these people pushing Lagos indigenous law, are they from Lagos themselves? Let's even start from there. Are they truly from Lagos? I've broken the table, yes. Are they truly from Lagos? Is the man that want to push this law, is he from Lagos himself?
The Constitution says you
so let's not do, you can be in any part of the country. So I don't know why people that are pushing all of these sentiments are not even true indigenous of Lagos, and they say all sorts. Let's keep Nigeria one.
Nigerians send their children to Canada, the school, buy houses.
If you trace their history now, they are not from Lagos. We know them now. They are not from Lagos.
If you trace the people promoting this idea, their children are probably not here. By the way, I get your constituency.
Anyway, don't be surprised. Maybe before Monday, Mudashiru Obasa may come and say, oh, he was quoted out of context.
Okay,
because that's the standard thing.
I'll be glad to hear that.
He may claim that the tape was a product of artificial intelligence. Isn't that the standard practice? When politicians put their foot in their mouths, they blame the journalists, they blame the reporters. Thank you, Emmanuel Efe.